Namaste. Welcome to Revision with Vrithi. Today we will start 12th lesson. Heidi meets grandfather. Heidi was a young orphan who lived with her aunt Date. She was brought to live with her grandfather, whom she met for the first time. He lived in a cottage near the snow-covered Alps. Read the story to know about her first day with her grandfather. So, Heidi was a young orphan girl who lived with her aunt Date. One day, her aunt took her to visit her grandfather, who lived in a hut in the Alps mountains. After Aunt Date left, grandfather sat on his bench again, silent, with his eyes looking down. After aunt went back, grandfather sat down on the bench with his head down. Heidi saw the goat shed and peeped in, but saw nothing. Her eyes searched for other interesting things. So now she is searching everywhere in that house. Heidi looked inside the shed and found nothing there. Behind the hut, she found 3 old fir trees, and as the wind billowed, the trees swayed from one side to another. Heidi looked. The old fir tree behind the hut was swaying in the wind. She stood listening to the wind rush through the branches and leaves. Then she returned to grandfather. He was seated exactly as before. She stood firmly in front of him with her arms behind her back. So after this, she came back to her grandfather. "What is it you want?" he asked. "I want to see inside the hut," replied Heidi. So he asked, "What do you want?" So she said, "I want to see inside the hut." "Come then and bring your things," he said, as he got up to enter the cottage. So he said, "Come inside." "I do not want them anymore," answered Heidi. "I want to be like the light-footed goats." "All right, but fetch them and we will put them in the cupboard." The child obeyed and followed him into a fair, spacious room. So they entered their room. Okay. Heidi meets grandfather. ಹೇಡಿ ಅನ್ನೋಳು ಒಬ್ಳು ಆರ್ಫನ್ ಗರ್ಲ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾಳೆ. ಅವಳು ಆಂಟ್ ಡೇಟ್ ಜೊತೆ ಇರ್ತಾಳೆ. ಒಂದಿನ ಆಂಟ್ ಅವಳ ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಫಾದರ್ ಹತ್ರ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಹೋಗ್ತಾಳೆ. ಅವಳು ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಫಾದರ್ನ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ನೋಡಿರ್ತಾಳೆ. ಸೊ ಅವಳು ಇವನ ಜೊತೆ ಒಂದು ದಿನ ಹೇಗಿರ್ತಾಳೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಈ ಸ್ಟೋರಿ. ಆಂಟ್ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಹೋದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಫಾದರ್ ಹಾಗೆ ಕೂತಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಬೆಂಚಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂತಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಇವಳು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾಳೆ. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಗೋಟ್ ಶೆಡ್ಡಿಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತಾಳೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಸಿಗಲ್ಲ. ದೆನ್ ಆ ಮನೆಯ ಹಿಂದ್ಗಡೆ ಹೋಗಿ ನೋಡ್ತಾಳೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫಿರ್ ಟ್ರೀಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಮತ್ತೆ ವಾಪಸ್ ಬರ್ತಾಳೆ. ಬಂದು ಅಜ್ಜನ ಹತ್ರ ನಿಲ್ತಾಳೆ. ಆವಾಗ ಅಜ್ಜ ಕೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ, ಏನು ಬೇಕು ಕೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಳು ಹೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ, ನಾನು ಹಟ್ ಅವರ ಮನೆ ಒಳಗೆ ನೋಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ. ಅವಾಗ ಅವಳನ್ನು ಅವರು ಒಳಗೆ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. A table and a chair in one corner. grandfather's bed in another. Across the room was a hearth with a large kettle suspended over it, and opposite that was a large door in the wall, his cupboard. So now we can see the description of the house. Okay, so when entered a room, there is a table and chair in the corner, and across the room there was a hearth. Hearth means a fireplace. In that, a large kettle was kept in that hearth. Okay, and in the large and opposite to that there is a cupboard. ಸೊ ಎಂಟರ್ ಆದ ಹಾಗೆ ಮನೆ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಹೇಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾರೆ. ಫಸ್ಟು ಟೇಬಲ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಚೇರ್, ಕಾರ್ನರಲ್ಲಿ ಟೇಬಲ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಚೇರ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಒಂದು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಹರ್ತ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಹರ್ತ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಚಳಿಗಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಂಕಿ ಕಾಯಿಸುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಅದು ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದರ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಕೆಟಲ್ ಇಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಕಾಯಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಟೀ ಕೆಟಲ್ ಇಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಅದರ ಅಪೋಸಿಟ್ ಕಡೆ ಅವನ ಕಬೋರ್ಡ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಒನ್ ಶೆಲ್ಫ್ ಹ್ಯಾಡ್ ಅ ಫ್ಯೂ ಶರ್ಟ್ಸ್, ಸಾಕ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಟವಲ್ಸ್. Another had a few plates, cups and glasses. The top shelf had a loaf of bread, some bacon and cheese. Grandfather kept all in this. So what we can get in that cupboard? So in his cupboard, one shelf full of shirts, socks, towels, everything. Means his dresses. And second shelf, he kept all the plates, cups, glasses, everything. And another top of the shelf, we can see the loaf of the bread, cheese, bacon, everything we can find in that cupboard. So cupboard ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟು ಏನು ಸಿಗ್ತದೆ, ಅವನ ಬಟ್ಟೆಗಳು, ಶರ್ಟ್ಸ್, ಸಾಕ್ಸು, ಟವಲ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಿಗ್ತದೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಅನದರ್ ಶೆಲ್ಫಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ಲೇಟ್ಸ್, ಕಪ್ಸ್, ಗ್ಲಾಸಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಟಾಪ್ ಶೆಲ್ಫಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ರೆಡ್ಡು, ಬೇಕನ್, ಚೀಸ್ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಇಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ಪುಟ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಹರ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಡೀಪ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ದ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್, she looked around the room and asked, "Where am I going to sleep, grandfather?" So she kept all her things inside that cupboard and she asked, "Where am I going to sleep?" ಸೊ ಅವಳ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಒಳಗಿಟ್ಟು ಅವಳು ಕೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ, ನಾನು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಮಲ್ಗೋದು ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ. "Wherever you like," he replied, delighted. Heidi began peeping everywhere to find a cozy place to sleep. Cozy means comfort. So now he told, wherever you like, wherever you want to sleep, you can sleep there. So she searched a cozy place. Cozy and comfort. She climbed the ladder beside grandfather's bed to reach the loft. It was filled with the fresh and fragrant hay and had a tiny round window through which she could see the valley below. So she climbed the ladder beside the grandfather's bed. There is a loft besides his bed. Loft means a roof of the space near the roof of the house. ಸೊ ಅವಳು ಅಜ್ಜನ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲೇ ಒಂದು ಲಾಫ್ಟನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ತಾಳೆ. ಲಾಫ್ಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಮಾಳಿಗೆ, ಅಟ್ಟಣಿಗೆ, ಮಾಳಿಗೆ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತಾಳೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಶಿ ಫೌಂಡ್ ಅ ಫ್ರೆಶ್ ಫ್ರಾಗ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಹೇ. ಹೇ ಅಂದರೆ ಹುಲ್ಲು, ಗ್ರಾಸ್. ಓಕೆ, and tiny round window through which she can see the valley. I want to sleep up here, Heidi called down and adding on, I am making the bed now. I need a sheet. Every bed must have a sheet. So she liked that place and she told, I like to sleep here only. So she want a sheet to cover to make a bed. ಸೊ ಅವಳು ಹೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಮಲಗ್ತೀನಿ ಬಟ್ ನನಗೊಂದು ಶೀಟ್ ಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ. Rummaging through his cupboard, grandfather pulled out a long rough cloth from under his shirts. Rummaging means searching quickly, hurriedly. Okay. His cupboard, grandfather. So in his cupboard he pulled a long rough clothes. Okay. ಕಬೋರ್ಡಲ್ಲಿ ಗಡಿಬಿಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹುಡುಕಿ ಅವನಿಗೊಂದು ಕ್ಲಾತ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾನೆ. With it he climbed up to the loft where a neat little bed was already prepared with hay heaped up high at the head of the bed facing the window. So in between this she prepared a bed from hay. Hay ಇಂದ ಅವಳು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಬೆಡ್ ಅನ್ನು ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾಳೆ. They put the heavy sheet on the bed and tucked the ends in. Heidi looked thoughtfully at her fresh new bed and said, we have forgotten something. When I go to bed, I always creep in between the sheet and the cover. So finally they prepared a bed. So he kept a sheet on that bed. Heidi said she could use some hay to cover herself with. Just then, grandfather rushed downstairs and brought a large heavy linen sack that was kept on his bed. So he wants some more clothes, so he get back that cloth, linen cloth. Heidi pulled the sack with all her might, but was unable to unfold it. Then grandfather put the thick cover on the bed while Heidi watched him. When the bed was complete, she said, what a nice bed I have now, and what a splendid cover. I wish the evening was here, that I might be going to sleep in it. So finally they prepared a bed and she was very happy for that bed. Grandfather mentioned food and suddenly she realized how hungry she was. With her excitement about the bed, Heidi had forgotten about the food. Before her long journey that morning, she only had a piece of bread and a cup of coffee. So after this, grandfather reminded her about the food. So then she remembered how hungry she was. ಸೊ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಆದ ನಂತರ ಬೆಡ್ಡೆಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ನಂತರ ಅವನು ತಿನ್ನಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಾದರೂ ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. Moving to the fireplace, he pushed the big kettle aside and reached for a smaller one suspended on a chain. Sitting on three-legged stool next to it, he lit up a bright fire. As the kettle began to boil, grandfather put a large piece of cheese on a long iron fork and held it over the fire, turning it slowly till it was golden brown on all the sides. So now he preparing a food for her. What he is preparing? He is preparing a tea and a bread, cheese. Okay. Remembering all that was kept in his cupboard, Heidi ran to it and brought out plates, knives, and bread to set the table. So, what she did, she started setting the table. When her grandfather brought a pot and the toasted cheese, everything else was ready and waiting. Looking at the steaming pot, Heidi rushed back to the cupboard and returned with the bowl and two glasses. So, they prepared for the food. Grandfather observed that Heidi's stool was very low and Heidi herself was too little. She wouldn't be able to reach the table. Grandfather filled the little bowl with milk, placed it on his chair, and pushed it towards Heidi's stool. Now Heidi had a little table with a little bowl of milk within reach. After drinking the milk is one go, Heidi took a long breath and set the bowl down. So what she had for what she has? She had milk in a bowl. Okay. How do you think the milk? How do you like the milk? Grandfather asked her. I never tasted better, she answered. Grandfather refilled the little bowl. Little Heidi ate the bread and cheese and drank the milk with the great enjoyment. What she had? She had bread, cheese and milk. Okay. ಅವಳು ಮಿಲ್ಕ್ ಚೀಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಬ್ರೆಡ್ಡನ್ನು ತಗೊಳ್ತಾಳೆ. ಬ್ರೆಡ್ಡನ್ನು ತಿಂದು ಹಾಲನ್ನು ಕುಡಿತಾಳೆ. Once she was done, both promptly went out to the goat shed. Heidi watched as grandfather moved out about first to put fresh straw for the goats, then to his little workshop where he began to make a little chair. Realizing that the chair was her size, she was full of admiration at how quickly he made it. So, after finishing this, they went to a goat shed to feed a goat. ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ ತಿಂದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಅವರೆಲ್ಲ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ ಗೋಟ್ ಶೆಡ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹುಲ್ಲು ಹಾಕ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಹಿ ಗೋ ಟು ಹಿಸ್ ವರ್ಕ್ಶಾಪ್ ಟು ಮೇಕ್ ಅ ಚೇರ್ ಫಾರ್ ಹರ್. ಅವಳಿಗೊಂದು ಚೇರ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅವನು ವರ್ಕ್ಶಾಪಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾನೆ. In the evening, while grandfather stood at the door, Heidi played outside the hut, dancing around the old fir trees as they rustled against the mighty wind roaring past them. The sounds filled her heart with happiness. It felt wonderful. After this, in that evening, she played outside that hut. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಅವಳು ಮನೆಯ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಆಟ ಆಡ್ತಿರ್ತಾಳೆ. Suddenly a shrill whistle was heard. From higher up on the mountain came a herd of goats with Peter walking among them. So suddenly she heard a whistle. So from mountain, a herd of goats coming near to their huts. Peter, he is the taking care of that goats. Okay. ಅವಳೊಂದು ವಿಸಲ್ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ. ಅದು ಆಡುಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ವಾಪಸ್ ಹಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಯಾರು? ಪೀಟರ್. Joyfully, Heidi ran out to greet the flock. When the herd reached the house, one white and one brown goat stepped out ahead of the rest and walked up to grandfather, who held out his hand to feed them some salt like he did every night. So in that, white and brown goats stepped near to grandfather because he feed them. ಅವರು ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಹಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಹೋಗುವಾಗ ಒಂದು ವೈಟ್ ಮತ್ತು ಬ್ರೌನ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಫಾದರ್ ಹತ್ರ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ, ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಅವನು ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಆ ಎರಡು ಗೋಟ್ಸಿಗೆ ಫೀಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. Heidi used this opportunity to case them one at a time. Are they ours, grandfather? Do they both belong to us? Are they going to the shed? Are they going to stay with us? Asked Heidi in excitement. She was very excitedly, she asked questions that is this ours, is they living with us, everything she asked. Grandfather tried to keep up with her question. Once the goats were done, grandfather asked Heidi to get her bowl and bread from inside the hut. With the bowl in hand, grandfather milked the white goat and cut a piece of bread. He told her to eat and then go to bed, while he looked after the goats and locked them up for the night. Good night, he said. Good night, grandfather. So after this, he feed to that goats and he told good night to Heidi. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಅವರು ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಫಾದರ್ ಗೋಟ್ಸಿಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಊಟ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಅದು ಶೆಡ್ಡಿಗೆ ಹೋದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಇವರು ಮಲಗಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಒಳಗೆ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ. Soon after Heidi had even eaten and gone to bed, it got darker and grandfather decided to go to sleep too. He would be waking up early when the sun came up. The stormy winds still blew through the night, making the hut shake and the boards creak. It howled in the chimneys, and dry branches of the old fir trees fell around near the hut. Grandfather decided to check on Heidi, thinking she might be afraid. So actually in the night, the stormy winds blows and the hut shakes for a while. So he thought maybe Heidi afraid of that. ರಾತ್ರಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟಾಮಿ ವಿಂಡ್ ಬರ್ತದೆ, ಅದು ಅವರ ಹಟ್ಟನ್ನು ಶೇಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. ಅದನ್ನು ನೋಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಫಾದರ್ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾನೆ ಹೇಳಿ ಅವಳು ಹೆದರ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ. Grandfather decided to check on Heidi, thinking she might be afraid. It was dark when he climbed up the ladder and reached her bed. In the moonlight that lit up the room, he saw Heidi lay peacefully asleep in her bed, cheeks burning red with a smile on her face. Grandfather waited until the moon hid again behind some clouds and went down to his bed. So he came up to see whether she is sleeping or not. She is sleeping very peacefully. ಸೊ ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಫಾದರ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಬರ್ತಾನೆ, ಬಂದು ನೋಡ್ತಾನೆ ಅವಳು ಮಲಗಿದಾಳ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಅಂತ ನೋಡ್ತಾನೆ. ಅವಳು ಹೇಗೆ ಮಲಗಿರ್ತಾಳೆ? ವೆರಿ ಪೀಸ್ಫುಲಿ, ತುಂಬ ಪೀಸ್ಫುಲ್ಲಾಗಿ ಮಲ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತಾಳೆ. ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಸ್ಟೋರಿ ಆಫ್ ಹೇಡಿ ಮೀಟ್ಸ್ ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಫಾದರ್. ಟುಮಾರೋ we will see the exercise part of this lesson. Okay, thank you.